Ya, selamat datang kembali Bapak Ibu di Ballroom BNDCC dalam acara kita ACII Regional Conference 2024 Purposeful Impact. Ya, kita berikan tepuk tangan dulu penyemangat kita nih biar nggak ngantuk habis makan siang ya Bapak Ibu, kita perlu semangat bertepuk tangan ini setidaknya membuat kita lebih segar. Dan berikutnya Bapak Ibu, kita akan masuk kepada acara panel kedua dengan topik Cyber Vault, Safeguarding Personal Data. Ya, langsung saja saya panggilkan moderator kita pada hari ini. Pada panel ini adalah Bapak Subagio Cahyono. Kami persilakan Pak. Pak Subagio Cahyono merupakan internal audit berpengalaman dan beliau telah bekerja dengan berbagai perusahaan multinasional dan perusahaan publik termasuk juga Ernst & Young. Bidang keahlian beliau meliputi investigasi dan pencegahan fraud, audit berbasis risiko, manajemen risiko, akuntansi forensik, keuangan, dan juga tentunya akuntansi. Kepada Bapak Subagio Cahyono, kami persilahkan.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Berita. Selamat siang Bapak Ibu. Sesi kita hari ini kita akan membahas mengenai Cyber Vault, Safeguarding Personal Data. Sebelumnya saya akan sapa rekan-rekan kita yang dari Korea. 안녕하십니까 여러분. 이번 세션은 우리 인도네시아어로 소용하겠습니다. 감사합니다. Untuk speaker kita hari ini, kita ada dua speaker. Yang pertama adalah Pak Sigit Kurniawan. Saya sambil akan bacakan CV beliau. Bapak Sigit saat ini adalah Direktur Strategi Keamanan Cyber dan Kriptografi di Badan Siber dan Sandi Negara. Sebelumnya, beliau juga pernah memegang posisi sebagai Kepala Biro Hukum dan Komunikasi Publik, serta Koordinator Kelompok Kerja Peningkatan Kepentingan Nasional di BSSN. Beliau juga meraih gelar Magister dari Institut Pemerintahan Dalam Negeri dan gelar Sarjana dari Sekolah Tinggi Sandi Negara. Pak Sigit juga terlibat dalam berbagai kegiatan berskala nasional, termasuk menjadi bagian dari tim penyusun strategi ekonomi digital nasional. Memimpin tim pengembangan alat pengukur kematangan keamanan cyber, serta memimpin tim pengujian keamanan infrastruktur peduli lindungi. Speaker kita yang kedua, saya undang Bapak Charles Lim. Pak Charles saat ini adalah sebagai peneliti dan dosen keamanan cyber di Swiss German University. Beliau juga bekerjasama dengan berbagai institusi seperti BSSN, Kemkoinfo, dan Bank Indonesia. Pak Charles terlibat dalam proyek regulasi dan akademisi terkait keamanan cyber, termasuk tingkat kematangan, tanggapan insiden, dan keamanan cyber. Pak Charles meraih gelar sarjana dari University of Wisconsin-Madison, gelar magister dari University of Hawaii, dan juga doktor dari Universitas Indonesia. Sebagai profesional keamanan IT, Pak Charles telah memberikan banyak konsultasi kepada beberapa organisasi dan memiliki banyak sertifikasi, termasuk Certified Ethical Hacker. Beliau juga merupakan penerima penghargaan ISI Council, Circle of Excellence Instructor Award, dan ISIF Asia Research Grant. Bapak Ibu, mari kita sambut Pak Charles dan Pak Sigit. Terima kasih Pak Charles, Pak Sigit untuk waktunya. Sebelum kita mulai, mungkin saya akan berdiskusi sebentar ya sama Bapak ya. Pak, kemarin Institute of Internal Auditor sempat mengeluarkan publikasi ya, Pak Charles, Pak Sigit. Jadi di IAE menerbitkan publikasi mengenai privacy dan juga auditing. Di mana salah satu publikasinya itu IAE menyebutkan bahwa role internal audit, saya sambil baca ya Pak, 59% internal audit itu dalam hal privacy, dia memberikan fungsi sebagai assurance, kemudian 54% di compliance, dan sisanya 55% consulting. Sementara 49% adalah dia melakukan risk assessment. Jadi menurut survei yang dilakukan oleh AAE, internal audit lebih banyak melakukan assurance dan compliance, gitu Pak. Dan selanjutnya dia juga memberikan survei bahwa konsen internal audit untuk data privacy adalah sebagian besar adalah data inventory, kemudian kedua adalah big data privacy, Pak. Nah, kalau menurut Bapak sendiri bagaimana itu, Pak? Mungkin kita bisa berdiskusi dulu ya, Pak, sebelum presentasi. Silakan dari Pak Sigit atau Pak Charles.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Bagio. Ya, kalau kita lihat memang jangankan ngomong data privacy ya Pak. Kita bicara masalah cyber security saja, masyarakat kita ini masih banyak yang harus memahami. Belum lagi kita ngomong data privacy. Dan kita sama-sama tahu bahwa privacy dan security memang dua hal yang berbeda, tetapi memang ada irisannya. Dan kalau kita lihat sekarang ini banyak perusahaan-perusahaan yang saat ini sedang mempersiapkan diri ya, untuk mengerti dan juga menerapkan data privacy yang mana harus ketok palu Oktober ini. Ya kan. Tapi pada dasarnya mereka masih ketinggalan, artinya mereka juga harus mengerti dulu pertama apa itu keamanan cyber, apa itu data privacy, apa itu data security. Nah inilah tantangan yang menurut saya sangat berat. Ya, makanya menurut saya conference seperti ini sangat dibutuhkan untuk meng-create awareness bahwa data security dan data privacy itu dua-duanya dibutuhkan. Dan ketika kita bicara audit, ya kita bicara bahwa semuanya risk based. Gitu. Artinya semua berbasis risiko. Dan kalau ketika kita bicara risiko, ya berarti ada hal-hal yang terkait dengan tadi security, ada hal-hal yang terkait dengan privacy. Nah ini akan menjadi kompleksitas yang luar biasa. Jadi walaupun kita terminologinya GRC, Governance, Risk dan Compliance, tapi kan risknya sekarang bertambah nih. Bukan hanya cyber security, tapi sekarang kita bicara lagi data privacy. Jadi data security, data privacy, keseluruhan ini menjadi kompleksitasnya lumayan besar. Nah ini makanya kenapa nggak heran ini menjadi prioritas yang cukup tinggi. Apalagi kita tahu bahwa keamanan dan serangan-serangan cyber ini luar biasa masif. Dan target mereka pasti data breach. Ya kan? Kita tahu bahwa ransomware memang menjadi alat yang paling penting buat mereka untuk menjalankan misi mereka. Ketika mereka berhasil mengenkripsi data, ya udah data itu yang akan dia pakai untuk dijual, untuk mengekspos kebrobrokan daripada perusahaan itu. Itu Pak, kira-kira kalau kita bisa bicara tahap awal ya, bagaimana, kenapa itu harus menjadi perhatian kita semua.
Pak Charles, mungkin Pak Sigit.
Terima kasih Pak Subagio. Jadi kita sebenarnya turut berbangga dulu ya Pak ya, kita sudah punya undang-undang perlindungan data pribadi yang dikeluarkan tahun 2022 gitu ya. Ini suatu kemajuan buat bangsa Indonesia, walaupun kita terlambat gitu ya. Eropa sudah mengeluarkan beberapa tahun yang lalu mengenai data privasi, dan ini memang tadi disampaikan oleh Pak Charles Tim, data privasi dan data security itu sama-sama penting gitu ya. Kenapa penting? Karena itu balik lagi ini masalah keamanan. Keamanan tadi Pak Charles juga mention berkaitan dengan kita berbasis resiko, betul sekali begitu. Jadi data adalah aset. Kenapa? Makanya oleh karena itu dalam resiko itu data menjadi aset yang penting gitu ya, baik di perusahaan maupun sebagai individu gitu. Memang kita sejauh ini masih belum bisa mengimplementasikan ya kaitan dengan perlindungan data pribadi dengan baik karena memang baru undang-undang yang terbit. Kita harapkan aturan turunannya juga sudah bisa diterbitkan selanjutnya gitu ya oleh pemerintah sehingga nanti kaitan dengan bagaimana perlindungan data pribadi, bagaimana kita perusahaan, organisasi melindungi data nasabah itu juga dapat dilakukan dengan baik. Tentunya kaitan dengan data pribadi, data security ini tidak lepas juga dengan keamanan siber Pak. Karena saat ini kita sudah hidup di era digital, khususnya bagaimana kita menggunakan ruang siber dalam digitalisasi ini tentunya keamanan siber menjadi hal yang mutlak. Oleh karena itu kenapa penting sekali adanya risiko cyber Pak, cyber risk itu ya. Bukan lagi kita bicara information risk atau IT risk, kita deep kepada cyber risk.
Terima kasih Pak Sigit. Bapak Ibu, untuk sesi pertama kita akan mendengarkan presentasi dari Pak Sigit terlebih dahulu. Waktu dan tempatnya, persilakan Pak Sigit.
Terima kasih Pak Subagio. Ini mohon izin saya membacakan menyampaikan dalam bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Indonesia Pak ya baiknya ya. Gimana Pak? Bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Indonesia menyampaikannya?
Boleh dicampur Pak.
Oh digabung, oke. Ini karena ada beberapa yang memang dari teman-teman dari negara luar, saya pikir tidak ada salahnya, mungkin saya panggil Pak Subagio kita campur gitu ya. First, I want to thank you committee to invite us in this greeting events. I'm very happy to be here to share with you about our perspective in government Indonesia, how to safeguarding personal data, including how to mitigate with cyber risk. Next slide, please. Okay, this is data from Global Risk Report 2024 that cybersecurity and also misinformation and disinformation is the top 10 rank for the next 2 years and next 10 years. So it's concern to government of Indonesia and also to us how to our facing in cybersecurity for the next 10 years. And in the right slide, we can see that in the context of organized crime, cyber security is related to illicit economic activity, disruption to critical infrastructure, for example, Indonesia energy sector, health, transportations, ICT and the others, and also misinformation and disinformation relate to generative AI. Next. This is global threat from data, the Global Threat Report 2024. We identify that the most threat in the world first is identify best and social engineering attack. We know that phishing techniques, for example, by emails, phishing call and the others is the most attack in the world currently. So this is in focus for government to handling of this attack. And the second is third-party relationship exploitation. Maybe you can you remember for the CrowdStrike attack maybe last month that impact for the airport and the other systems. CrowdStrike is the third party of the Microsoft that have vulnerability about their system. That this is about how to we can focus about the third party vulnerability. And the third is cyber operation in the conflict. We know that global geopolitical globals, for example, activists. We know that war from Russia and Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, and South China East issues. Maybe impact with the cyber operation in the conflict. So we need to prepare our national defense in cybersecurity to handle these issues. And the last is generative AI. We know that AI not only have the benefit, but also they have a negative impact. For example, the fake, misinformation, disinformation, the others, that AI can also create the malware for efficiency and also effective for the creating ransomware. So generative AI has also make effective social engineering. For example, with email and the others to create the data, to collect the data from the customers. This is in the cloud, in the right slide that you know that Indonesia maybe last 2 months has incidents in national temporary data center. That is the cloud. That cloud is now its biggest attack because in the cloud they have much of the data for the customer and also the private sector, and the data is very, very important. The last is easy extract, identify that number of observed spam email and the average of cost buying access to a corporate networks. Next slide, please. This is difference of information security and cyber security. Maybe you have the perfect perception about the information security and cyber security similar. It's a difference actually, because information security may be related with confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And how about the cyber security? Cyber security is how to protect or defend the use of cyberspace from cyber attack. So cyber security need the actor cyber attack need the actor to attack the system. So the cyber space include how to protect the information system infrastructure, internet, telecommunication network, computer system, and the others. So the difference with cyber security and information security risk is about how the cyber risk we can identify and recognize the vulnerability and threats in cyber. I was discussed with my colleagues previously in financial services. They have a good profile rise. But they also the incidents happen in the organizations. That's why, because they didn't recognize the cyber risk properly. So that's why we need to identify cyber risk properly to how to mitigate the cyber attack with the vulnerability and also the threats. Because the difference from the threat between information security and cyber security. Next, this is a cyber threat. Maybe you can see the common of cyber threat, for example, business email compromise, and also data breach and data extortions, like Pak Charles mentioned. Ransomware is the biggest attack to how to breach and they encrypt the data, and if the victim didn't to pay the ransom, the attacker will be extort the data and publish the internet the data from the ransom. So the next is denial of service to make systems cannot work properly, and also malware, management attack to get the data in the internet, also phishing attack from email, WhatsApp, phone, and the others, and also the last is ransomware. Ransomware is currently still big global issue right now. So that's why all the government in the world now concerned how to mitigate the ransomware, because it's still big issue, and we need to collaborate between government, academia, private sector, and also the private sectors. Next. This is element of cyber risk management framework. We can start with the cyber risk strategy, how to we can conduct the cyber risk management with overseen by the board, and we need assess the current cybersecurity and compliance posture. For example, the conduct threat risk assessment, develop a cyber risk management framework, and communicate key issues to the board. And the second is how to identify best to reduce or eliminate known risks that I mentioned before, that we need to identify the risk of cyber in these organizations. So, for example, first is quantity, the risk by identifying probability and avoidance cost, develop a risk appetite, develop benchmark to manage the environments, consider the cost, assess cyber literacy, consider auditing standard, and the last is 6, independent third party. And the last, manage future risk exposure and incident response with the integrated real-time threat detection system, have immediate response plan, develop BCP, cyber security awareness, education training, encourage security culture, and the last, keep up to date of the latest information. And the risk is should be monitored, evaluate, and adapt. So that's why risk management is should be effective. Next. For the risk management framework, you can use ISO 27 and 5. This is ISO standard for the risk management standard framework with how to create the context and how to analyze the risk treatment, and how to communicate with the stakeholders. And next slide. Beside the ISO 27 and 5, you can also use the ISO 31,000 about the ISO risk management standard frameworks. This is similar with the ISO 27 and 5. How to establish the context, identify risk, analyze risk, and until they communicate and consult with the stakeholders. This is similar. You can use this framework, or you can use NIST framework with the specific of cyber risk. Next. This is the key challenge to implementing the risk management. First, board or CA supports or commitment from the board or C levels. And second is responsibility or accountability. Who is the risk owner? Who is the system owner? Who can get the responsibility about the risk management? And then risk measurement. Risk should be measured. How to we can enhance our capacity in risk management. Not only risk, but also we can measure our maturity model in cybersecurity. Indonesia already have cybersecurity maturity to identify how mature the organization level. And then the risk should be linked to corporate strategy is necessary, and how to board levels know about the corporate strategy linked by to risk, cyber risk, and then linked and impact to good corporate governance. And risk should have adding value, and risk also have the common risk language. So if we know the risk, cyber risk is maybe we can relate to the other risk, for example, operational risk, financial risk, and the other risk. And then lead to control self-assessment, and then risk reporting. Risk should be reported to the BOD, and also technology is one of the solutions to mitigate the risk. Next. This is government's regulation number 71 year 2019 about the implementation of electronic system and transaction. That electronic service provider or ESP or all organization, both public and private, should guarantee the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the system electronic. And also the electronic service provider should protect the personal data. And that's why Pak Charles mentioned previously about the importance of the data privacy and data security. And then why the ESP or electronic service provider should requirement hardware and software security, and requirement expertise to handle how to secure the ESP in organizations. This is part of personal data protections from acquisition and collection, processing, analyzing, how to store data, how to revision, update the data, display the data until the deletion or removal. This is step by step how to protect the data in an organization or the electronic service provider or ESP. Data should be concerned with the confidentiality, integrity, and availability as well. Next. This is Information Security Management System, or in Indonesia we call SMPI, based on BSS Regulation number X year 2022, that Information Security Management System hereinafter referred to as SMPI regulation BSASP, both public and private, based on principal risk. So that's why this risk is important, that to how to secure the system and the data. We categorize electric system based on risk, strategic, high and low. Maybe you can see the how to categorize this system based on our regulations. And then ESP, that running electric system, must at least implement SNE ISO 27001. This is similar with ISO 27001 and the other cybersecurity related standard that published by BSSN, or National Cybersecurity and Cryptography Agency, and Ministry or agency defined. For example, Ministry of Health that regulate with the health sector, OJK and central banks regulate to financial service sectors. Next. This is Information Security Management System implementation. For example, in SMP implementation, we need experts and consultant agency, or we call LK, lembaga konsultan, that SMP consultant agency should have SMPI implementator. So that's why implementation for the system should have the expert and the SMP implementator. And then SMP certification, how to audit the system. So we call SMPI Certification Agency, or LS, lembaga sertifikasi. That the certification agency should have in InfoSec auditor or ARCI. Both of consultant agency and certification agency recognition service by BSSN, and that's why recognition by BSSN, because to increase the trust and credibility, increase the market and job opportunity, and the last, increase skill and professionalism in the of the expert and also the consultants. You can see the list of LK and LS in BSSN website. And you can, if you need service for LKLS, you can call the BSSN in the right chat. Next. This is requirement for registration, renewal SMP auditor and implementator. The auditor, based on our regulations, requirement that the latest educational certificate is last bachelor's and certificate completion of information security auditor competency issued by LSP cybersecurity sector, for example BSSN, the other LSP. And then certificate test the field of information security within the last 5 years. And in the last 5 years have 1 year of work experience on the scope of information security audit and 2 years of work in the field of information security related to information security or cyber risk management and audit. And the implementator, the requirement is similar with the auditor, bachelor education certificate, and then have certificate completion of competency test as implementator of SNI ISO 27001. Have the competition test in security in the last 5 years and have work experience in the last 2 years. Have experience as implementator of information security, cyber risk management, the others, and audit. Next.
Pak Sigit, mohon maaf waktunya kurang 2 menit ya Pak.
Thank you Pak Subagio. This is national standard of competency for the audit. That released by Ministry of Manpower, SKKNI are deed to several institution agencies. You can see with the regulation keputusan Menteri Tenaga Kerja number 24 2020 2022. It can be used by educational and training institutions, business industries and employees, and also institutions responsible for testing and certifications. This you can see how the audit for IT security competency works. Next. This is electronic-based government system security audit ecosystem. This framework for the SPBA we call electronic government based on electronic base with regulation presidential decree number 95 2018. That SPBA security domains include how to internal audit and external audit should involve. And then Ministry of Communications has released regulation number 16 2022 about the ICT audit in general policy, and for the specific audit for cyber security, BSN still finalize the regulations. Next. Thank you. This all from me. I will give to Pak Subagio, moderator. Thank you.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Sigit waktunya. Untuk selanjutnya saya persilakan Pak Charles, silakan Pak.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, very good afternoon everyone. Again, my name is Charles Lim. I am going to talk about a more practical side. We discussed this with Pak Sigit, yeah. And so next please. So I think Pak Bagio already introduced me. Basically I'm involved not only in the university, I also involved in many communities, including Indonesia HANA project for research communities, and also Academy Computer Security Incident Response Team. Okay, next. Yeah, so today I am going to talk about several aspects. Start from data breach, which is very important, and then we'll talk about the evolution of business and services. We'll talk a little bit about, I think Pak Sigit mentioned about information security and data security. We'll talk about the essentials of our Undang-Undang PDP. And then we'll talk about the incident response plan. I think Pak Sigit mentioned about some of the framework. Then we'll talk about data breach essentials and then the Indonesian context on data breach. Okay, and then we sum it up with lesson learned. Next. So I would like to start with the quote of the day from the guy who is very famous. He's one of the greatest cryptographer, Bruce Nair. If you know, Bapak Ibu, we actually have 3 pillars in cybersecurity. We know that these 3 pillars actually is people, process, and technology. And in cybersecurity, we actually have what we call the security chain. Yeah, so it's like a chain of all the components together. And according to Bruce Nair, people actually is the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we as people tend to have more problem than technology and process. And you know, we can witness many of the cyber attack and cyber threat actually caused by people. Okay, so next. So this is just some data breach that I gather from the internet, and you can find more. But just to show you, this is not just belong to a certain company, but this belong to many companies that across many sector, yeah, including the company that actually protects security. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it's just no one is escaped from these matters. Okay, so everyone will actually eventually be hacked and compromised. Next. So at the end of this basically threat attack, we can actually see that 85% of every attack usually involve human, right? And this is the majority of the problem. Human is the problem. Now, the other thing is, of course, since human the problem, we usually go into a system or application, we require have some credentials, right? And so those credentials also are weak. And again, because of we as a people is weak, then our credential can be also weak. And that goes everything with the problem. And of course, we can see that I mentioned earlier about ransomware. Ransomware is the perfect tools, yeah, for the attacker to gather all our data, and they can do whatever they want once they get our data. And finally, always risks always involve some kind of weaknesses or vulnerability. Next. Now, when we talk about the personal data, here we can see a very simple personal data compared to non-personal data. And of course, there are special cases when we talk about special categories like criminal records, medical records, religious belief, and many other types. But we can see that sometimes even this kind of categories, people are confused which one is personal and which one is not. Okay, this is just a simple example of categorizing personal data. Next. Now, when we talk about threats to personal data, we already seen many examples, right? People are usually lured, right? They are basically being fished, right? So that they can click on a link, click on a document based on certain situation, and then they give out their credentials. That's where the credential become the second target. First the human, second the credentials. This is where the problem comes from, right? And we know that most of us, we like to create a password that's easy to remember. And that's also caused another problem, right? So these are some of the threats that we are seeing in cybersecurity. Of course, 50% usually involve malware, virus that we usually accustomed to. And of course, there are other insecure surfaces because maybe they never audit or they never actually do any penetration testing or anything like that. Next. Now, let's go through a little bit of business in perspective of evolution, right? Next. So we can see that since 1990s, we can see that business usually focus on mass production, and everything goes to this kind of mindset. And then move on to the next phase, we can see that everything is about distribution and marketing. That's their business model. And then move on to the early 2000, where we actually have e-commerce, where the internet is now beginning the driving force of every business. And then move on to the next stage, the business model now shift to customer. So everything is determined or actually set by the customers. And today, in the early 2020s and beyond, we can see that everything is about data. That's why we are talking about data today, right? And so data or information become the new oil. And so we need to pay attention on what's going on our data. Next. So this is the common problem of every individuals. We like to get free services, right? And we go to different platform to get services, but we forget that we usually give out our personal data in exchange of these free services. And so that's go on with the platform. They work together with the vendors, and they sell this data that we actually provided, and they become monetized, and that's go on with the services. So this is where we call it the digital transformation, but there is a risk that probably risk of this individual doesn't even understand when they work on, let's say, public services or even free services. Next. So this is a basic of information security. Pak Sigit already talked about the framework, but I would like to make sure that we have the same page. Next. So we talk about this CIA triad or CIA triangle, right? Everything based on these three pillars of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So if we want to protect our data and we want to make sure our data is secure, that means our CIA need to be guaranteed. So we cannot say either or, but it has to be everything together. Okay, so we cannot take and pick one on the other. Okay, next. And this is a simple formula for cyber risk. I think Pak Sigit talked about the framework. I would like to talk about a simple formula to help us to understand that risks involve threats, okay, potential attack, and then vulnerability. This usually related to the system. You know, we know that every application that created by human always have vulnerabilities. And of course, everything goes back to the asset. The higher the asset value, the higher the risk, right? And if we actually sum this up together, the risk will be higher if we see the larger threats, larger vulnerabilities, and of course, higher value of asset. And the only thing to reduce this risk is to have a security control. This is where we have, you know, education for people, audit the processes, so we can actually see reduce risk. And of course, at the end, we need to enforce and check IT as well. And some people always forget that auditing is not just about finance, accounting, but it's also IT these days. And plus, today we have a cybersecurity. Next. So let's talk about data security. Next. So sometimes people ask me about what is the difference between data security and data privacy, right? I think this simple, diagram help us to understand that there are several aspects that is overlapping between security and privacy, but we actually see that privacy is always about a cycle of collection until we terminate, that data. So it's a life cycle of how you actually maintain the data. That's where the data privacy comes in. But the security side is about this CIA. How do you protect your data? And so in the middle where we have the overlap between privacy and security, this is where the data protection comes in. Okay, next. And of course, when we talk about data protection, there's always a cycle of, this mentioning about how you collect data until the data is being terminated. Yeah, and this process is quite important, and this process is actually what, our Undang-Undang PDP also cover. And I think many of us need to learn how this process is actually maintained and of course sustained, in our organization. Next. So, of course, when we talk about data protection, we cannot escape technology. We talk about people, process, but we also need to talk about the technology. Yeah, Pak Sigit coming from BSSN, which have the roots of cryptography. So encryption becomes a very important aspect. And today we have a blockchain, which now have this cryptocurrency now based on blockchain, right? And provide us, assurance on this exchange of crypto. And of course, today we can see how artificial intelligence actually enhance or actually may also reduce our risk, because now the attacker also gets the hand on their on artificial intelligence. They can use AI to actually, attacking on us, creating better, let's say, phishing words or schemes, yeah, so that lure people into clicking or maybe doing something what the attacker want. And of course, at the end of the day, we need to design privacy into our people, process, and technology. So that's why we call it privacy by design. Next. So this is just an example for data protection method, and we can see each aspect of data protection from monitoring, access control, where how people access your data and how you mask your data, right? Different layer of masking. And then of course, if you want to make it even better in terms of encryption, or if you want to talk about tokenization, right? Converting your data so that it's irreversible, but it's still relevant to your data. So this is just a simple, a bit of fine grain of how you can protect your data, different way, and at least you have some taste of what can be done to your data, how you can protect your data. Okay, next. And of course, whenever we talk about data, there is always data in process, right? And then data in use and data in transit, right? So that means when the data at rest, right? That means you are storing your data in the storage. So how do you actually make sure your data is secure, right? You can use some tokenization, and when you have a data in use, in finance or customer service, you can mask them, you can re-identify. So these are some of the methods that you can actually do to your data in terms of protection. And of course, you can also use machine learning, right? Using these methods to re-identify, okay? Because that's what machine learning is all about, right? They actually be able to identify patterns. That's what they are good at. So obviously, machine learning can become one of the way to be used in this so-called data protection. Of course, at the end, everything is role-based, right? And applying in this list privileges and zero trust, meaning that you don't trust anyone, you just basically validate everything. Next. So a bit of Undang-Undang PDP, just a bit of overview next. So we have this several key terms in our Undang-Undang PDP, right? From legal to special protection, data processing, risk assessment. Just now we were talking about risk assessment, data termination, and then compliance and reporting at the end. Next. So if we actually see all these 8 aspects, we can see different, this number of, we call it usually pasal, right, of every undang-undang. And we can see each of these section have a different, actually concern, right? For example, like in the special protection, we're talking about how about parental guidance on consent, because, children doesn't have protection yet. They don't know what to say or consent, right? Because usually when we want to talk about protection, if we want to actually get their data, we need their consent. But what about children, right? So all these things are covered in what we call special protection. Next. And then, of course, when we talk about compliance and reporting, of course, many of you already understand that data processing, is actually based on requested, and you need to report the status every now and then. How often, that's between you, your declaration, your organization, and that's part of your process. Next. So again, the core is what to act, right? Number 1, compliance. We talk about collection, processing, storing your data in comply with the regulation. Data protection officer is a must. Yeah, many of my students who are professionals in our master program, they now set up a DPO, data protection officer, right? They begin to have a special unit to cover this, overseeing this overall compliance. And of course, you need to have a notification in case, something happened or you have an incident, taking care of data transfer cross-border, and pay attention on sanction and penalties. And finally, the subject right. This is where we respect the right of data subject. Next. Now, next. In accordance to basically cybersecurity, we know that cybersecurity have always two aspects. You can always take a proactive aspect, which means you do an assessment. I think Pak Sigit talked about many framework to do assessment. But on the other hand, you don't know everything, right? You always have what we call the unknown risk or the uncalculated business risk. And so when we talk about that, we need to have an incident response plan, meaning that when the incidents happen, what do we do, right? I think we see many playbook here. Playbook means that we have a certain SOP, with certain procedure. Yeah, for example, what happens if there is a data breach? All of a sudden our data is now on the dark web. What do we do, right? So all this plan of doing incident response, when there is a data breach, who is taking care, who is leading, this is part of the incident response plan. Next. And of course, there are step by step when we talk about data breach from step number 1 until step number, the final step where we do communication to the relevant parties and of course to the public, right? And in the recent case of CrowdStrike, finally the CEO in the DEF CON, they acknowledge, right, their mistakes, right? And finally they acknowledge their mistakes and they move on. And I think this is part of what we call the, data breach plan. You just have to acknowledge that you have a data breach or you have make mistakes, in your process, right? We all know that they actually don't do well in their processing of, this vulnerability assessment and distributing these fixes to all the computers. I think there's 8.5 million computers at stake, right? Next. And finally, there is a data governance, right? Next. So data governance is always about the structure approach where we outline rules, process, responsibility, managing all this data that we talk about. Next. And of course, there are always driven by your vision, mission, value, and you have a step programs, right? Intentional to make sure that your participant is actually, following your framework. And again, this is just a simple framework to tell you the step by step what you can do to govern your data. Next. So, data breach, how does it work? Next.
Pak Charles,
Yes.
waktunya kurang 2 menit ya Pak.
Yes. So basically this is just to show you that in overall, basically attacker, they target human, like I said. Human is their target. So no matter what, how strong your people, your process, your technology, they always target people. That's why perimeter security in any organization now become very weak because it is not the perimeter that actually the problem, but it is actually the people. So once they target your people, they move across organization to find out where your data is, and they will try to capture the data, and they will try to actually expose your data to the public. Next. So in the Indonesian context, next. Yeah, we know that Indonesia is not the highest, but still they are in the top 10, yeah, in terms of data breach across the world. And on the right-hand side, I show you what's happening in Semarang City because there is a data leak. And every single day we saw data breach in Indonesia, whether it's coming from SME or whether it's an enterprise company. Next. And this is just to show you some information on our several pasal, yeah, the section where we have to pay attention on data pribadi, yeah. about how you expose people datas, ya pasal 33, and then the next one. Next. This is talking about if you intentionally gather people's data without consent, you will have a punishment. Next. And of course, in this matter, you actually sell them. That one is just gathering. This one is actually sell them. You have a punishment as well. So now for the first time in our undang-undang, we have a punishment for every act that you actually did. Next. So our lesson learned to close, next, is that always use strong authentication. Remember, people is the target and your credential is next. So make sure you use multi-factor authentication. Next, again, decide how you protect your data. If you want to do data encryption, remember there is a data at rest, data in transit, data in use, and of course, always patch your data. Remember, your software, because your software is usually have vulnerabilities and there is no escape, right? Every software will have vulnerabilities and so you need to patch them regularly. And of course, data minimization and retention policy, that's a must, right? We make sure that if we don't need them, just destroy them. And of course, incident response plans is important, right? You don't just create plan after you have an incident, but you prepare for a plan. I think Benjamin Franklin say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? That's a very basic principle. And then finally, compliant law and regulation, that's what we talk about, I think, in this conference also, right? I think that's all. Next. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Charles. Bapak Ibu, kita akan buka pertanyaan kalau misalnya Bapak Ibu ada yang mau bertanya, tapi sebelumnya mungkin saya akan berdiskusi dulu ya dengan Pak Charles dan Pak Sigit ya. Pak, kalau misalnya Undang-Undang Nomor 27 Tahun 2022 ini ya, Undang-Undang PDP ini kan rencananya akan diimplementasi Oktober ya Pak, kalau nggak salah ya, Oktober 2024. Nah kalau misalnya kita lihat prakteknya sekarang ini kan lebih banyak rekan-rekan yang di financial service ya Pak, bank atau asuransi atau perkreditan segala macam ya yang melakukan penerapan awal ya Pak. Sementara mungkin yang manufacturing mungkin agak belum ada gaungnya ya. Nah sementara kalau kita baca di undang-undangnya, pasal 1 ayat 4-nya kan dia menyatakan ya bahwa itu berlaku untuk setiap orang ya Pak ya, termasuk untuk juga pelayan publik dan organisasi internasional. Di situ saya juga lihat kan Pak ya, di undang-undang PDP ini dia nggak berdiri sendiri kan, dia juga ada pasal-pasal atau undang-undang lain yang turut menyertainya ya Pak ya. Misalnya kalau untuk pelayanan publik, kita juga harus melihat undang-undang keterbukaan informasi ya Pak. Jadi nggak semua informasi harus di-share kalau misalnya kita pelayanan publik gitu. Terus kemudian juga ada undang-undang lain yang mungkin mendukung di undang-undang PDP. Nah, mungkin yang saya minta pendapat dari Bapak dan Pak Sigit sebagai auditor internal, apa sih Pak yang seharusnya kita lakukan supaya kita bisa memberikan value added buat perusahaan? Karena kita juga ingat bahwa undang-undang PDP ini kan sebenarnya suatu hal yang baru ya buat kita, terutama juga bagi auditor internal. Misalnya ada beberapa istilah yang mungkin kita nggak familiar, misalnya ada subjek data dan data owner, itu kan sebenarnya adalah salah satu istilah yang berbeda ya Pak. Kalau misalnya kita dulu belajar IT audit, kita akan selalu diajari mengenai data owner. Sementara di undang-undang ini kan ada yang namanya subjek data, itu kan sebelumnya nggak ada ya Pak kalau kita belajar IT audit. Terus kemudian juga ada istilah pengendali data dan pemrosesan data, seperti itu kan. Bagaimana juga kalau misalnya ternyata datanya itu disimpan di luar negeri gitu Pak. Apakah undang-undang PDP ini akan berlaku dan bagaimana kita melakukan auditnya. Terus kemudian yang kedua juga kalau misalnya kita belajar dulu teknologi, dulu kan kita selalu diajari bahwa password yang berapa 12 dan ada kombinasi angka huruf itu secure gitu kan Pak. Dan juga dibilang bahwa something you have, something you know, something you are itu bisa menjamin data security gitu. Tapi dengan berkembangnya teknologi seperti sekarang, mungkin kita tahu ada deepfake, terus kemudian juga perkembangan AI gitu ya. Ada juga misalnya mungkin Pak Charles ya, di digital forensik ya Pak, ada brute force attack gitu, terus ada Canable yang bisa memaksa password. Itu apa sih Pak sebenarnya yang harus kita lakukan sebagai auditor internal untuk bisa mengikuti perkembangan dan bisa menjamin bahwa kita memberikan value added dalam penerapan data privacy gitu Pak. Silakan Pak Charles, Pak Sigit. Mungkin Pak Sigit dulu.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Subagio. Jadi betul Pak, sejatinya gitu ya, terkait dengan implementasi undang-undang PDP ini ataupun pelaksananya harusnya di Oktober ini sudah mulai dilaksanakan. Tadi saya sampaikan sebelumnya bahwasanya memang ada keterlambatan dalam penyusunan aturan turunan Pak dari undang-undang PDP yang seharusnya ini sudah mulai dibahas gitu ya, ataupun harusnya tahun ini sudah ditetapkan, Oktober sudah mulai jalan. Tapi sepertinya ini masih ada kendala-kendala dari sisi government yang mungkin bisa jadi akan terlambat nih Pak implementasinya gitu ya. Tapi tidak hanya sebatas itu, kita ketika ini undang-undang PDP ini turunannya belum ada, terus kita bisa melanggar nggak juga gitu ya. Kita sudah ada undang-undang tadi Bapak sampaikan, sudah ada undang-undang PDP, tapi kita bisa relate dengan aturan lainnya, seperti undang-undang KUHP gitu kan, undang-undang UITE, undang KIP, keterbukaan informasi publik dan lain-lain, yang juga relate dengan aturan tersebut. Bahkan PPPST sendiri, aturan dari UITE itu juga sudah ada beberapa aturan-aturan yang sudah mewajibkan baik individu maupun PSE atau dalam hal ini adalah penyelenggara sistem elektronik untuk mematuhi sisi keamanan seperti itu Pak. Jadi tadi Pak ada berbagai istilah yang mungkin berbeda gitu ya. Karena memang kalau di undang-undang kita kan aturan kita itu semuanya harus di bahasa Indonesia kan Pak. Nah mungkin ya itu saya pikir hampir sama Pak fungsinya gitu ya. Tadi masalah ada pengadil data owner gitu ya. Tapi memang di undang-undang PDP nomenklaturnya saja beda Pak gitu ya. Tapi secara prinsip dengan standar-standar yang sudah ada gitu ya. Ataupun kita relate dengan EU GDPR itu nggak jauh beda Pak. Bahkan undang-undang kita sendiri pun sebenarnya nggak jauh dari kita adopsi dari EU GDPR Pak. Nah, seperti itu. Jadi bisa direlasikan lah ataupun dikaitkan. Nah, tadi kaitan dengan password Pak ya, contohnya tadi 12 atau segala macam gitu ya. Nah ini memang untuk internal auditor gitu ya, mungkin juga banyak juga harus mencari referensi-referensi terkait dengan standar Pak gitu ya. Karena tadi Pak sampaikan something you know, something you have gitu dan lain-lain, itu memang harus diterapkan Pak. Jadi multi factor authentication itu sangat perlu gitu ya. Jadi nggak hanya passwordnya panjang, tapi kalau bridge ya sudah selesai. Tapi multi factor authentication sangat diperlukan Pak. Minimal 2 ya, 2 factor authentication. 3 lebih bagus gitu ya. Seperti itu. Jadi tidak hanya password, tapi misalkan ada token ataupun biometrik ataupun yang lain-lain sebagai pendukung dari autentikasi itu sangat diperlukan saat ini. Gitu Pak. Jadi tadi bridge bagaimana nge-break password itu sudah banyak toolsnya Pak, metodenya juga sudah banyak gitu ya. Bahkan dengan cara berbagai macam gitu ya, mau dia tidak hanya brute force attack, tapi juga misalkan pakai dictionary attack ataupun attack-attack lain misalkan phishing atau social engineering gitu ya, ataupun dia menanam malware gitu ya, passwordnya walaupun sekompleks apapun tetap bisa didapatkan dari kalau kita menanamkan malware di gadget kita. Tapi kalau dengan daya tadi multi factor authentication itu mungkin akan ada hal lain yang perlu gitu ya didapatkan misalkan dengan OTP gitu ya, dengan lain-lain seperti itu. Itu Pak, jadi ada lagi yang belum jawab tadi Pak ya? Cukup itu Pak ya? Terima kasih.
Pak Charles.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Bagio. Ya, Bapak Ibu, saya bicara dalam bahasa Indonesia. Pertama yang perlu kita perhatikan di dalam cyber security kita ada NIST memperkenalkan yang namanya cyber security framework. Ya, di dalam cyber security framework itu yang terbaru mereka memasukkan kata yang namanya govern atau tata kelola. Jadi menurut saya pertanyaan tadi dari Pak Bagio, nomor 1 yang kita perlu perhatikan adalah tata kelola. Ya, jadi artinya kalau kita bicara audit ya kadang kita hanya fokus kepada aspeknya saja. Tapi kita lupa juga tentang tata kelolanya. Karena kalau tata kelolanya salah ya komponen-komponen yang dikelola ini juga salah semua. Jadi nomor 1 yang saya usulkan adalah tata kelola ini harus diperhatikan. Nah yang kedua mengenai, tadi ada pertanyaan juga mengenai bagaimana menyiapkan orang-orang audit. Ya. Nah Bapak Ibu karena kita bicara dua dunia nih ya, ada cyber security karena risknya ada di security dan ada di privacy. Jadi dua-duanya mereka harus memahami. Jadi kalau kita bicara cyber security, kita bicara ada yang namanya kalau seperti pemain sepak bola ada yang offense, ada defense. Atau kalau di dalam cyber security kita bilang ada blue team dan red team. Jadi orang-orang ini, orang-orang audit biasanya kita harus perlengkapi dengan mereka harus mengerti bagaimana melakukan ofensif. Atau mereka masuk sebagai hacker. Ya. Berarti Mereka harus mengerti bagaimana melakukan penetration testing, bagaimana melakukan vulnerability analysis, ya. Kemudian mereka juga harus ngerti apa yang dicari, apa yang memang penting. Karena kan tadi kita bilang risk itu kan adalah ancaman dikali kerentanan. Mereka harus tahu kerentanan itu ada di mana. Sehingga mereka bisa tahu, oh ternyata risknya ada di sini. Ya. Kemudian ya kalau kita bicara aset lebih gampang ya, karena nilai aset menentukan risknya juga. Nah mungkin yang terakhir tadi yang saya bilang bahwa ya at the end orang-orang ini harus dibangun, nggak bisa orang sembarangan terus kemudian kita anggap semuanya bisa. Ini harus dibangun satu persatu dari ngerti cyber security, kemudian masuk ke data privacy tadi ya, the whole process life cycle-nya sehingga mereka punya kemampuan karena kompetensi itu kan knowledge, skill, and ability. Berarti knowledge dan skill-nya harus dibangun dan ability-nya ketika dia mempraktekkan dalam nanti kasus auditnya tadi. Mungkin itu Pak dari saya.
Terima kasih Pak. Mungkin karena mengingat waktu, saya mohon maaf Bapak Ibu, saya hanya kasih satu pertanyaan aja ya, karena mengingat waktu. Iya silakan Bapak yang dari belakang.
Baik, mungkin saya pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya. Saya Teddy dari Bank Rakyat Indonesia. Di dalam persepsi saya, mungkin saya minta opini dari kedua pembicara. Selama kita masih menggunakan software yang sifatnya umum, maka kita tidak bisa menjamin kebocoran tidak terjadi. Contohnya pakai Microsoft, pakai Google, pakai chat, gitu, WA dan sebagainya. Karena sebetulnya kita tidak paham betul kok itu, di dalam sistem itu cara kerjanya seperti apa, algoritmanya seperti apa. Bisa saja mereka menanamkan suatu sistem yang bisa share informasi kemana-mana. Apalagi beberapa database-nya tidak di kita. Gitu kan. Nah mungkin pertanyaan selanjutnya, apa yang harus kita lakukan? Kita sebagai user misalnya, apakah kita memang sebaiknya menggunakan open source gitu ya, lebih ke Linux atau bikin algoritma sendiri gitu kan. Atau mungkin kita memang membatasi penggunaan sistem-sistem yang masih di luar, even server pun harusnya diuji itu. Apakah ada alat-alat yang ditanam di situ gitu kan. Nah, sekarang dari sisi government-nya harus seperti apa? Apakah kita harus mengikuti kayak negara Cina yang melarang, bukan melarang sih, menghimbau atau mungkin larang juga menggunakan Microsoft, dia bikin versi Cina-nya gitu kan. Nah apakah harus seperti itu? Atau bahkan kita mumpung banyak orang-orang pintar di Indonesia, banyak ITB, UI dan sebagainya, bangunlah sekarang Microsoft versi Indonesia gitu. Mohon pendapat. Terima kasih.
Silakan dijawab Pak Charles dulu ya, mungkin Pak Sigit ya. Silakan Pak Charles. Pak Sigit boleh.
Baik, terima kasih Pak. Kalau dari kami government sepakat Pak apa yang sampaikan Bapak tadi ya. Jadi kalau bicara kemandirian teknologi ya Pak ya, itu sangat mutlak, sangat penting buat kita bersama. Tapi ketika kita butuh teknologi, tapi kita belum ada teknologi tersebut, sehingga kita masih butuhkan dari teknologi asing atau luar, ya tentunya mau nggak mau kita harus menerima berbagai risiko gitu ya Pak ya, harus kita ambil. Nah bagaimana memitigasi risiko tersebut gitu ya, ketika kita menggunakan mungkin given teknologi gitu ya, tadi OS, apalagi misalkan email dan lain-lain. Ya, beberapa cara adalah contohnya ketika menggunakan email Pak. Kalau tadi Bapak sampaikan apakah kita menggunakan Google itu aman atau tidak, ya tentunya karena pemilik teknologi adalah Google, tentunya kita tidak bisa menjamin security seluruhnya gitu ya. Oleh karena itu tadi sampaikan oleh Pak Charles Pak, ada namanya teknologi enkripsi gitu ya. Di mana enkripsi ini bisa kita gunakan sendiri Pak ketika kita mengirimkan email gitu ya ke mitra kita bisa melakukan enkripsi terlebih dahulu isi email tersebut gitu ya kepada mitra kita gitu ya. Di mana enkripsi ini mungkin kita masih bisa menggunakan enkripsi yang mungkin dibuat dalam negeri gitu ya. Karena banyak sekali enkripsi-enkripsi yang sudah di algoritma enkripsi yang sudah dibuat oleh anak-anak bangsa gitu ya. Dan ini juga sangat memungkinkan untuk sebagai mitigasi dari risiko tersebut. Begitu juga ketika menggunakan Microsoft ataupun OS yang sudah given gitu ya, itu juga kita bisa menggunakan tadi metode enkripsi di dalam data, penyimpanan datanya tersebut gitu ya. Tapi memang balik lagi Pak, kaitan dengan teknologi ini, apakah kita bisa menggunakan open source ataupun yang lain-lain, yaitu kami juga berharap demikian. Kita seperti contoh dengan Pak Charles ini Pak, BSN juga sudah kerjasama dengan Pak Charles Lim via SGU, kita membuat produk-produk karya anak bangsa Pak, bagaimana melakukan deteksi monitoring ya Pak terhadap traffic di ruang cyber. Nah ini juga salah satu upaya kami gitu government menggandeng akademisi gitu ya. Nah kita juga berharap tidak hanya dari SGU saja gitu, mungkin dari akademisi yang lain, bahkan private sector pun kita juga harap demikian gitu ya. Kita mengembangkan teknologi kemandirian seperti itu dan ini menjadi konsen Pak Presiden juga bagaimana kita memiliki kemandirian teknologi gitu di dalam negeri sehingga kita bisa menggunakan ruang digital ini dengan baik seperti halnya seperti Cina gitu ya, mereka sudah punya sendiri teknologinya, misalkan mereka menggunakan sebenarnya WeChat gitu ya dan lain-lain, itu memang seperti itu harapannya gitu ya, karena memang pemerintah dan para pemangku kepentingan itu bisa menggunakan atau membuat teknologi secara mandiri untuk kepentingan nasional. Demikian Pak.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Sigit. Bapak Ibu, ini kita ada pasti satu pertanyaan, saya akan bacakan dari sesi online. Mungkin ini saya akan bertanya ke Pak Charles ya Pak. Pak, ini dari Pak Risa Faiz Ahmad dari MOF, Ministry of Finance ini kayaknya ya. Nowadays, business digitalization grows rapidly. We can use our personal device for working everywhere. As internal auditor, what do we do to assure the data security and privacy? Can we assess control sufficiency of employees, personal staff that use for work? Mungkin bisa dijawab Pak.
Ya, mungkin ada samanya juga ya dengan pertanyaan Bapak tadi, saya lupa namanya dari Bang Danamon tadi ya. Jadi intinya kita tahu bahwa ketika kita menggunakan, ya contoh lah kita beli handphone, kemudian kita mulai meregister, kan di handphone itu harus meregister email. Terus kita tanya aja emailnya pakai apa nih, ya kan? Anda pasti saya yakin pakai yang gratisan, entah itu Gmail, Yahoo, apalah. Nah kalau kita bicara mau paranoid, ya nomor satu kita pakai browser yang begitu kita selesai, cookiesnya atau semua hasil browsing kita dibuang. Ya akibatnya apa? Ya ketika kita search lagi itu nggak akan ketemu karena memang sudah dibuang. Nah kalau kita memang mau paranoid ya, jadi artinya kita memang benar-benar mau secure ya, tapi ada efeknya juga ya. Kalau memang itu oke, ya nggak ada masalah. Nah kemudian yang kedua tadi ketika kita pakai kita pakai free service, mau tidak mau ya data kita itu pasti dikasih ke mereka. Nah sekarang bagaimana nih kita sebagai user, ya kasih yang memang minimalis aja. Tadi kan kita udah sempat bahas apa yang namanya personal data, apa yang bukan. Ya, sekarang kita tanya aja misalnya apakah nomor handphone itu personal? Iya dan tidak. Toh Bapak Ibu naruh nomor handphone di kartu nama. Ya kan, jadi sekali lagi itu arguable juga. Ya, saya ketemu orang Jerman, dia hanya naruh nomor kantor dan nomor fax misalnya. Nomor handphonenya nggak ditaruh. Nah buat dia nomor handphone itu personal. Ya berarti data pribadi gitu kan. Jadi itu perlu kita define juga dengan baik. Ya kadang-kadang kita ngomong data pribadi tapi kenyataannya enggak gitu ya. Jadi mana yang menjadi pribadi, mana yang enggak, ya kita harus define dengan baik. Nah satu lagi yang terakhir bicara perangkat tadi, ya udah otomatis lah. Sekarang perusahaan sudah mendefine, oke, kalau Anda mau menggunakan network kami, ya udah perangkatnya ya ini. Ya perangkatnya ini sudah kita secure, sudah kita amankan dan hanya ini yang bisa masuk. Ya sisanya ya Anda akses pakai wifi tersendiri. Ya jadi kalau Anda bikin wifi dan lain sebagainya, ya silakan Anda pakai wifi yang di luar jaringan kita. Jadi tidak ada lagi cerita dia bisa pakai perangkat pribadi untuk akses di jaringan kita. Ya jadi dengan cara demikian ya biasanya kita sebut sebagai BYOD tadi kan ya. Nah itu mungkin bagian dari strategi yang kita bisa coba lakukan untuk mengurangi risiko-risiko yang mungkin datanya bisa keluar dan lain sebagainya. Ya mungkin masih banyak ya strategi-strategi yang lain tergantung dari tujuannya. Mungkin itu dari saya Pak.
Oke, terima kasih Pak Charles. Bapak Ibu mengingat waktu, mungkin saya akan simpulkan untuk presentasi kita hari ini. Berarti untuk data perlindungan data pribadi ini antara data privacy dan data security nggak bisa dipisahkan ya Pak ya. Dan juga kita harus mengikuti perkembangan zamannya ya, perkembangan teknologi yang kita harus ikuti Bapak Ibu sebagai auditor. Dan mungkin yang terakhir Bapak Ibu sebagai anggota AEE, Bapak Ibu kayak yang mau melakukan auditing privacy, AEE sebenarnya sudah punya aja GTEC 5, bisa di-download di website AEE untuk member gratis. Jadi di situ adalah auditing privacy risk. Dan kemudian juga ada beberapa panduan dari AEE untuk auditing privacy. Demikian Bapak Ibu, kita beri aplaus yang paling meriah untuk Pak Charles dan Pak Sigit. Terima kasih buat waktunya, selamat siang.
Baik, terima kasih. Kami mohon kiranya tetap berkenan di atas panggung untuk penyerahan token apresiasi. Dan untuk itu kami mengundang dengan hormat Bapak Indra Soeharto berkenan memberikan token apresiasi kepada para pembicara kita. Ya, kita saksikan Bapak Ibu. Iya, terima kasih kami ucapkan kepada Bapak Sigit Kurniawan. Terima kasih kami ucapkan kepada Bapak Charles Lim. Kami persilakan untuk berfoto bersama terlebih dahulu. Iya. Terima kasih, kita berikan tepuk tangan sekali lagi Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian. Sesi yang sangat amat menarik ya, dengan topik yang juga sangat relevan. Perlindungan data pribadi dan cyber security. Baik, terima kasih. Kami persilakan untuk dapat kembali ke tempat.